It's the all-in battle between Magnus Carlsen, who is on the right of your screen, against Alireza Firouzja on the left. It is the Alpine SG Pipers taking on the Triveni Continental Kings here. And this one is the semi-finals of the event. It's the final round of the group stage, but it has become like the semi-finals because whichever team wins here goes into the finals. We have the FIDE president Arkady Dvorkovich, who has come here for the initial move. Magnus versus Firouzja. The first game that they played against each other in this event ended in extreme chaos. And this time it's Firouzja who has the white pieces. Magnus is black. The first move was made 1 e4 by the FIDE president. Alireza takes it back. The arbiter comes in, asks them to start the clock. 20 minutes plus no increment, 1 e4, and Magnus responds with the Sicilian. He goes e6 and we have the open Sicilian on the board and the Sicilian Khan. Wow, it's going to be very exciting. c4, the Marozzi bind setup against the Khan. Knight comes out to c3 and queen c7. The queen belongs to this square in the Sicilian. a3, try to stop bishop b4, also later can expand with b4. Magnus trying to fianchetto his bishop. The bishop comes out, pressure on e4, pawn supports it, and now Magnus brings his bishop out to e7. Magnus is going for a modest setup here. This is known as the hedgehog setup. Black tries to play in the first 3 ranks while white has more space. But like the hedgehog creature, if you come too close to black structure, it has very good potential to break out and defend itself. Knight d7, you have b4 played here by Firouzja, and Magnus brings his rook into the game. The queen moves up, and generally in such positions you play rook f e8. That's exactly what Magnus has done. Now the knight jumps back. You can see this is very typical play by both sides. The queen is moving back. You are angling for the d5 or b5 breaks as black, but Magnus goes h5. Again a typical move trying to weaken the structure, and Alireza's move bishop f4, perhaps not the best. Knight jumps into the center and the knight attacks the pawn on b6. Magnus defends the pawn, also attacks the knight, provoking b5. Alireza drops back here and Magnus pushes on with his pawn. He's trying to soften up the king side with perhaps h3, but for now the knight drops back and attacks the bishop. The bishop has to move to g5. This is already better position here for Magnus. Breaks on the queen side with b5. Fantastic move. Knight jumps in, attacks the bishop and the pawn, and Magnus drops back his bishop. And now pawn to h3 to fix this structure, and d5. Beautiful move, opening up the queen, and Alireza says, I have a protected passer, but now the black pawns are rolling on. Keep an eye on those central pawns, they are extremely dangerous. Takes, pawn takes, and the knight jumps in. This knight is well placed here. Alireza captures a free pawn, but the knight jumps in and attacks the queen. You can see now the development here is that the dark squares for white are extremely weak. Alireza offers a trade of knights, and Magnus takes his time. He has 7 minutes 54 seconds and Alireza has 3 minutes 4 seconds. A pawn pushing forward, and Alireza tries to blockade the pawn, but the knight takes, queen takes, and look at those central pawns. They are absolutely stunning. They're just simply moving ahead. Now bishop g5 might be a good idea. He moves in with the queen, trying to put pressure on the knight. The rook moves in, defending the knight. Magnus is actually doing it for his team here, and he is winning. Alireza looks to have no chances. He has 2 minutes on the clock and also a lost position, but Magnus is a little bit careful here not to make a mistake. He goes g5. The point is, if you take here, he wants to take breaking the pin. So Magnus takes the pawn. The queen jumps in now, attacking the bishop. Queen drops back. You can trade it, and black is better. So he brings his queen back, and now pawn push to e3. Great move. You can take and trap the rook here. But Magnus has to figure this out in few seconds. But look at Alireza's time. He has just 25 seconds. Magnus has 2 minutes. So Magnus is totally better, but now his position is not that winning like before. He takes on g5, Alireza takes 25 seconds. How can Alireza survive this against Magnus, who has 2 minutes on the clock? Pushes the pawn to d3, queen f5, attacking the rook here. Magnus has to be careful. He goes rook f8, rook f1 played, and now queen c3. He moves his queen right into the center of the board, takes the pawn, pushes forward. Now you can see that this pawn on c6 is also very strong. It goes to c7, queen c4, offering a trade, queen d7 and d2. Great move here. Go to queen c1. Magnus, no, he doesn't find it. Check, king moves ahead, and now Magnus has 1 minute 31 seconds. Alireza has 13 seconds here. It's intense time trouble. Look at Magnus. He goes g6, takes the pawn, king g7, and Alireza moves the queen. Check, king here, rook e8 played. He pushes the pawn to h4. I can't believe how many moves Alireza is making with just 10 seconds on the clock. Insane. He's not dropping on time, while Magnus has moved down to 1 minute on the clock. Of course he's worried here. He pushes forward, rook f2 played. 54 seconds to Magnus. Again a check, and the speed at which Alireza is making his moves is insane. He's just absolutely amazing. Queen e6, check back, king f8, he finds another check. Magnus down to 30 seconds. Alireza still has 7 seconds. It's humanly impossible to play so fast. And look at Magnus, how tensed he is. He's like, now I have to flag Alireza. Rook comes in, check, king goes back. He gives another check, rook comes back. Check, rook comes up. He brings the rook. Check the position. Magnus trying to checkmate. The final position is maybe he can take the rook, but check. And he loses on time, but the final position is drawn. Wow. Magnus Carlsen is able to flag Alireza Firouzja. This is actually insane battle between these two players. In the first match, it was first game, Alireza flagged Magnus. Now it was Magnus's turn. Of course Magnus was better, but the final position was drawn. I'm really amazed by the number of moves that Firouzja played here in the last 10 seconds. He made, I guess, more than 15 to 20 moves, which is physically so difficult. Meanwhile, Magnus has won. Now Alireza's eyes are on his teammates. Turns out that on the last board, Javokhir Sindaro won his game, and this helped Triveni Continental Kings to qualify to the finals in spite of Alireza losing. But what a match between these two champions. Absolutely stunning and thrilling.